Hey, good evening, guys. We're going to take a look at Modern War magazine, issue number 39 from January to February of 2019. Advertisements here in the beginning, then you get to your articles, lots of pictures, lots of maps. The magazine itself is absolutely beautiful. Then we get to the game itself. It's called Axis of Evil, Iran. And here in the introduction, it says that Axis of Evil is an operational to strategic level two-player war game covering a struggle between the Russian-led Eurasian Union and a coalition of opposing states to gain control of the Middle East. From Iran to Syria and the Persian Gulf, possible combatants include Russia itself, the various Middle Eastern states, Iran, and the Persian Gulf countries. Units represent operational task forces that are approximately divisions or up to corps-sized units. There are also special forces, air power, and cyber war. Additionally, paramilitary forces are built into various game forces. The game system models the operations in a vast theater with limited infrastructure and coalition forces which may have divergent political aims, with combat both on the ground and in the virtual sphere. The object of each player is to seize critical resources, logistics, and communication centers, thereby gaining control of the Middle East. The game scale, each hex on the map represents 62 miles or 100 kilometers from side to side. Each turn represents anything from 3 days of intense combat to a couple of weeks of refitting. They do that in a lot of their games. I don't understand how a turn can represent anything from 3 days to 14. Anywho, then we go over the components. Here's the, I'll look at the units. There's only one number. That's the combat factor. There's a unit type, symbol, and organization size, and identification, nationality stuff. A plus symbol after the combat factor represents a hyperwar designation. They may conduct hyperwar movement. It's a hyperwar unit. Special forces unit, their number in the center is surrounded by a black box that represents its support factor. Then we have garrison units, which cannot participate in attacks but are for defense only. Looks like garrisons can switch sides. Then we're going over the nationalities that may be printed on the, see right here, there's an RUS, that's Russian. And it's going over all those. Here we go over the Russian unit abbreviations. If you really are interested, there's a ton of them. It's not really, you don't really need it for gameplay. Here's some strike units, aircraft, missile strikes, naval units. Here they're going over your different unit types. Airborne, amphibious, combined arms, complex terrain, forward operations base, guerrilla or jihadi, infantry or paramilitary, tank, garrison, and special forces. Then we're getting into the setup, how to set the game up. Going over admin markers. Then we're going over how to win. Section 5 is operational considerations. Then part 6, we get to the turn sequence. Looks like it's an action point game. Each side determines the number of action points they get. Then they alternate taking actions until all their action points are gone, and then it's the end of the turn. It goes over the action point phase, the different things you can do. Shock, garrison units, reinforcements, regrouping and recycling, unit movement, ground combat, support, going over the combat results table, going over air operations, missile and naval units, and that's the end of the rules. Again, there are 16 pages. Usually these Wargame magazine rules are 16 pages. Looks like that's pretty standard. There's 16 pages they have to play with for these rules, and that's what they have to work with. Then you have an advertisement and the continuation of an article. And then on page 18 of the magazine, Joe Miranda writes some design notes here about the game Axis of Evil Iran. Here's a little advertisement for it. Let's go ahead and take a look at the counters. You get, your standard counter sheet. Pretty thin, in my opinion. That's thin. Thin white core. If you punch them out, they're probably going to tough pretty bad at the edges. You're going to have to clip them. Well, I do, but let's look at the counter sheet. Looks like there's Russian, Iranian, Syrians, garrison units, Pakistani, and Algerian unit, Islamists, Iraqi, Israeli, and NATO. Not a whole lot of units, actually. Let's have a look at the counter sheet. Airplane pictures look nice. And most of them are double-sided. Well, they're all double-sided, but some of the units don't have a reduced side, I guess. So now we're going to open up this map, and fellas, please let me apologize, because there are going to be some hard creases. This game has been stored for quite some time. And there we have a look at the map. My camera does not want to focus. Looks like each hex is filled with a terrain type. So there's going to be no ambiguity about what terrain's in what hex, that's for sure. But it does make the map look a little, I don't know, like 80s. Like basic, beginner level type stuff. But it's a map of the Middle East. Here you have Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria. Iran's over here. Yeah, it's actually a pretty large scale. There's a terrain effects key right here, if the camera will focus. And you have terrain effects charts. Here's a scenario table. You have your different combat tables. Here's the air combat and bombardment table. And over here's the ground combat table. And here's a action point expenditure table. Tells you what actions you can do and how many points it costs to do them. That's good to have on the table. There's some holding boxes on the edge here. Some tracks also. Some tracks for the opponent. Some holding boxes for the opponent, and probably the same charts repeated that are on your side of the table. Map is functional, basic. I wouldn't say it's ugly, but it looks pretty simple. But, I mean, I really can't complain that much about it other than to say it looks like it's from the 80s. So that was a look at the game that came with Modern War issue number 39 from the beginning of 2019. The included game is Axis of Evil Iran, conflict in the Persian Gulf. Thanks for watching, guys. Oh, look for some upcoming news from Decision Games. I mean, from me, I started to playtest again for some of their magazine games. And I'll talk to him and see if maybe I can give you guys a preview of what's coming up. Thanks for watching.